Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being. Welcome to the 25th episode of the Diverse Minds podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about how to organise effective mental health awareness events in your workplace. I've decided to make an episode on this topic as it's just been Time to Change Day on the 6th of February. And as important as one-off events are, sometimes they can feel sporadic. And it's about how you can tie them together for a cohesive set of events to complement your wellbeing strategy or how you want to create a wellbeing strategy. Events can also be a helpful way for you to develop in your workplace a wellbeing action plan. One of the things is that we all like to get involved in a national campaign and show our support. However, doing this in isolation with no follow-up or follow-through linking to other areas of a workplace can be detrimental. It can also be the case that in a large organisation, when one part of the business might be excellent and another area could be disinterested or, quite frankly, terrible, there is a disparity. Therefore, staff receive mixed messages and there's a potential reputational risk. It also means that staff don't access help and support available uniformly, and certain members of staff may have a terrible experience where other members of staff have a very positive experience. So it's important to equalise the playing field. If your organisation is signed up to a pledge, for example the Time to Change pledge or Mental Health or Mindful Employer Charter, it's key to ensure there's a joined-up approach that will make a positive cultural shift to and for people. I think it's key to ask the question, what's the point in organising a series of events if there's no real behaviour change or positive cultural change and people just come along for the free lunch? And I've had this happen to me several times, and it's incredibly disrespectful, but it also chips away at the positive initiatives and change that a core team, and it's usually a core team of people, will be trying to create. And I'll hold my hand up. I myself have been guilty of organising tons of events and not contemplating about the wider picture. I felt under pressure to show what I'm doing, getting people involved, doing what the staff networks tell me, that it's been a case that the events haven't really made an impact or brought strategy to life. And there were times in senior meetings where members of staff had said things like, well, as good as Mental Health Awareness Week was, why is there so much profile in 1 week and then nothing for the rest of the year? And the example they gave was Mental Health Awareness Week, where there were at least 1 or 2 events on per day, and then their perception was there was nothing on for the rest of the year. Now, that wasn't the case, but perception is important, and it made me feel dreadful, even if it wasn't the truth, and I also had to acknowledge that that's what their perception was. So if this is something that you're struggling with and you want to find out more, you can book a free 30-minute call with me to find out how you could tie your events together. But in the meantime, I wanted to give you some ideas on how to address this topic and think about mental health awareness events throughout the year and also tying it to tangibles in your workplace. So the first thing is to think of the theme that you want to adopt for the year or the particular awareness raising time. Now, Mental Health Awareness Week in May in the UK usually has a theme. The theme hasn't been released yet. Time to Change Day also has a theme. World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October will also have a theme. You might like to weave these through, or you might like to choose something for the year or 6 months ahead. That could be getting support before you think you need it. It could be having a conversation. It could be upskilling managers, whatever works for you. The second thing is to link it to the strategy, aims, objectives of your workplace and think multi-pronged approach. So mental health can be linked to health and safety. It can be linked to staff retention. It can be linked to staff productivity. It can be linked to profits, because if people stay in work and aren't off sick or feel supported to come back sooner, that all has a knock-on impact on profits. And it could also link to customer engagement in terms of empathy, conversations, campaigns, whether you have a product-based business, a service-based business, or it's public sector. And I think it's really useful to link it to several angles. And use any data that you have. So this could be staff survey or pulse data. And can you set out any measurable or tangible impacts? It may not always be possible, but it's worth thinking about. And this brings me on to my third point. that several heads are better than one, and you might not know all the data available in a particular organisation. So set up a working group and not a talking shop with people who want to be there. Create a really positive working group from people with staff members from around the business at different levels to bring together thoughts. So it's not purely strategic and it's not simply operational, but it's a mix in the middle, and there's also potential to influence more senior staff, or there's influence from within the group to get peers on board. Senior level involvement is also essential. Just something simple like an email from a senior leader sends out a positive, clear message of support to all staff. And it's been a real game changer for banks and financial sectors as part of their open workplace journeys. This is especially powerful if someone in the organisation is willing to speak about their lived or personal experience of mental ill health, whether as a carer or an individual, someone who's been through a mental health recovery journey. It can get the ball rolling and be a starting point to build on future work. And they could start by talking about general statistics and then relating it to themselves, if they feel happy to do that. The chances are that every workplace will have staff who have a story to tell, and providing a platform for this encourages others to share their story. And it also goes beyond a particular week, day, month, or year. It builds a community and increases trust within teams and across organisations to start conversations earnestly and honestly. And what about thinking about the types of events that would build interest? So the example I'd like to share is the Depressed Cake Shop. One of my absolute favourite events that really got people talking and engaged was the Depressed Cake Shop. And you might be thinking this, you might be hearing this and thinking, what is she on about? Well, there's some amazing photos you can see at the Depressed Cake Shop website, and I've shared this in the show notes. And this idea was started by Emma Thomas and is now a global phenomenon. And it is what it says, making and baking cakes that are dull, grey and glum on the outside, but bright and vibrant on the inside. So some examples are grey icing on the outside. When you cut the cake open, someone has used food colouring so they're bright red, or white icing with a cloud and a sad face, and you cut them open and it's a rainbow layer cake. And this is really impactful as it gets people talking about depression, mental health and recovery. You can run it as a competition, raise money for charity, because everyone does love a competition. And there are so many fabulous bakers out there. And who doesn't enjoy a sweet treat at 11 a.m? You can also have different categories, so best gluten-free cake, best vegan cake. So why not throw in a prize for the most depressed cake in different categories? And I am sure, as I have experienced, you will have a very good number of people wanting to take part. And any money raised can be donated to a particular mental health charity of your choice. And this was such a winner when I worked at Imperial College London. It also gives a platform for you to say, right, we've run the Depressed Cake Shop, this is how much money we've raised, and these are the other steps we're taking. So an example of a follow-on step could be the drop-in. Holding a lunchtime drop-in in a communal area works really well. Staff can bring their own lunch, make a hot drink if you have a communal kitchen, and meet new colleagues. But what about focusing on the conversations? So what I would say is to encourage conversations about mental health and well-being. Put down some question or thought cards or pieces of paper on the tables. Some examples to get people talking would be, how are you today? On a card or piece of paper. Tell me something positive that's happened to you today. How could you create more time for yourself each week? Do you have a happiness hour where you do something you enjoy? What are your top tips when you feel low to feel better? And this is a gentle way to make staff feel comfortable and normalise the subject. It's also a great follow-on from an event like the Depressed Cake Shop. And the other win here is that staff are taking a lunch break, so you could also use the hashtag Reclaim Your Lunch Break, as well as getting people to talk about mental health and well-being. They'll get away from their desk, and this links back to well-being and productivity. Speaking of getting away from your desk, what about walking and talking? So recently I did some work for the International Rescue Committee, and they had a brilliant poster on their doors all about walk and talk meetings. And I appreciate in the UK it's chilly more often than not, but if you are able to, why not get outside, put some warm clothes on, even if it's just a one round around your building, and have walk and talk meetings. Stepping away from your desk to get fresh air allows you to see a new perspective on things. And last year, Time to Change teamed up with Ramblers, Britain's largest walking charity, to highlight the wellbeing benefits of walking and talking. And they produced a guide on walking and talking, which I'll share in the show notes. Research has shown that being in nature reduces the stress hormone cortisol and lowers blood pressure. And another useful paper, if you don't believe me, is Streetscape Greenery, which I've also included in the show notes. It's a fascinating read and it highlights the link between urban nature and mental health, because I also appreciate that not all of us have access to green spaces immediately. But it is surprising how many of us do have access to a park or a local or even a small green space that might be nearby. If colleagues and team members are open to this idea, it's a novel way to have a one-to-one and help people see things in a different way. And the Mental Health Foundation's research has found that even a short burst of 10 minutes brisk walking increases our mental alertness, energy and positive mood. And what I would say is don't delay, get out on that walk today. So together, we can work towards creating events and activities and suggestions that work towards a culture whereby we can not only talk about our mental health, but everyone feels involved. And we're also incorporating our physical health, whether that's when we are at our optimum, as well as times when we don't feel mentally fit. I also want to be clear that I'm not saying doing some of these things or one of these things is a magic wand and it will magically work overnight. There are clearly people that will have to buy into it, and there does need to be a shift in mindset. But by having a strategy and linking it to the overall aims, objectives and strategy of a business with a particular focus on a working group, so you've got your team on board, and repeating the message around mental health, well-being, conversations, good management in different ways, this will result in a more impactful and positive way to get staff to not only engage and be part of your events, but it's more likely to result in long-term behaviour change. And if you're interested in reading more, I've written a blog post, particularly around time to change, with some of these suggestions. So in essence, think about a theme and what you'd like to do. Link it to your strategy, find any data. Can you create any tangibles? As I always say, don't go it alone. Who can be on your working group, and make sure it's not a talking shop. Think about the kinds of events you'll do. How will you appeal to different people and their styles? Incorporating things like walk and talk meetings, lunchtime drop-ins, is a way to keep the conversation going in a light touch way, so things aren't onerous and they don't fall on one person. So if you're still struggling and you're thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to tie together, feel free to book a 30-minute free call with me on my Calendly. I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to talk to you about the options available to you. Have you tried any of these? What did you do for Time to Talk Day and did it work really well? I'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to message me on Facebook, comment on my LinkedIn post, or tweet me on Twitter. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.